Hello there. The favorite comes from India. His competition is almost entirely female. And anyone looking for diversity in Britain will find it in the current race to succeed Boris Johnson as leader of the ruling Conservative Party and thus as Prime Minister. It's not even out of the question that the next head of government in the UK will be a black woman with dreadlocks. Yeah, and that's the positive side of the current selection process for Britain's leadership. The Tories celebrate the diversity of British society, a legacy of colonial times and post colonial migration. The Labour Party, on the other hand, has always elected white men as leaders. British politics is being forced to keep pace with rapid social change as the country demands of its political class a capacity for self renewal that is rare in the world. And anyone who holds an office is exposed to constant criticism. When the current move is completed, three of the last four prime ministers will have been ousted after 3 years. And Gordon Brown, Theresa May, and Boris Johnson were not political lightweights. On the contrary, they just haven't been able, and probably didn't want to paralyze their political environment to such an extent that they are the only mobile actors left, as has recently happened in certain other Western democracies with terms of up to 16 years. The downside of this is the danger that personal changes will take the place of policy changes and that personal character will become more important than political content. Boris Johnson attracted a sometimes insane hatred that was almost entirely based on his personality. Just because someone isn't Boris Johnson isn't enough to decide who should move into 10 Downing Street. The motley field in which no one resembles Boris Johnson is standing. Now comes the political persuasion. Change of personnel takes the place of a change of policy, and that personal character becomes more important than political content. And it is to be feared that not much will change here. Despite the election of a successor to Boris Johnson, his government plans continue unabated. BBC News and BBC World News will be merged, saving around 70 jobs, or cutting them. After Culture Minister Nadine Dorries announced plans to freeze fees of £159 a year for the next 2 years, the public broadcaster has had to save around £285 million. The BBC is merging its news channels, cutting dozens of UK jobs as a result. About 70 workers will lose their jobs due to the merger of BBC News and BBC World News. That's what the PA news agency reported on Thursday, citing its own information. The new channel BBC News, due to launch in April 2023, will broadcast from London during the day and from Singapore and Washington during the UK night. 20 new jobs would be created in the US capital, the PA said. The BBC said it would create a streamlined organization that makes the most of the royalty and delivers more to the audiences. The public broadcaster is set to save, as I said, around £285 million after Culture Secretary Nadine Dorries announced that they would freeze the £159 a year for the next 2 years. The business model of the British Broadcasting Corporation, the BBC, which is celebrating its 100th anniversary this year, is heavily dependent on fees. It has previously been announced that the BBC 4, Radio 4 and CBBC channels would no longer operate as linear channels. In the past year and a half, 1,200 employees have already left the station. And digital director Naya Nielsen said, "Our goal is to create the best live and breaking video news service in the world on our websites, our apps, on iPlayer, and our new TV news channel." Media behavior is changing. Tens of millions of people watch the live coverage online. That's why we are investing in new ways of reporting breaking news, and our news channel and digital teams will work hand in hand to bring the best journalism to audiences, both domestic and international, said Nielsen. And when it comes to the British government plans for Brexit, hardly anyone expects the relationship between the UK and the EU to improve after Johnson. The EU must respond to future breaches by Britain of trade and political deals with the EU with new laws to prevent a repeat of the ill-fated short-term blockage of vaccine shipments to Northern Ireland. Irish centre-right MP Sean Kelly called on the EU executive to inform the EU Parliament of any intention to take action against Britain. Kelly, who presented his report on the draft law to the EU Parliament's Committee on International Trade and Foreign Affairs, said the regulation was designed to avoid future mistakes like those seen in February 2021. At that time, the Commission announced that they would be willing to trigger Article 16 of the Northern Ireland Protocol, but they later withdrew this intention, so they never triggered it. The reason for this was fears that corona vaccines bought by the EU could cross the border in Northern Ireland. UK ministers have since cited the incident as justification for their own action to suspend or potentially invalidate parts of the protocol unilaterally, which has nothing to do with that, by the way. This was a particularly worrying incident that we were particularly critical of at the time, but fortunately President von der Leyen corrected it quickly. With the changes and text I have proposed to this regulation, that will no longer happen, is what Kelly said. There should be a meaningful exchange of views before decisions are made, he said. The law gives the EU the tools to respond to the breaches of the protocol, the withdrawal agreement, and the trade and cooperation agreement with the UK. Commission official Richard Shostak told MEPs that the law was primarily designed for the EU-UK trade deal and is an instrument that covers all the unilateral action needed. MEPs aim to finalize the text in the weeks following the return of the EU institutions in September, while EU ministers will set their own position on the text on June 21st. We think a quick deal would also send a useful message to the UK. Kelly stated, this new EU regulation is exactly what the Union needs to ensure it has all the right tools at its disposal should the UK government continue to breach its post-Brexit agreements and go back on its word. Meanwhile, in London, the UK government's bill to repeal the provisions of the Northern Ireland Protocol is making its way through the House of Commons. British MPs rejected any changes to the bill when they voted on it. It's all but certain that this UK bill will pass the House of Commons with no amendments. However, with the ruling Conservatives lacking a majority in the upper house of the UK Parliament, the House of Lords, it is likely to see a significant overhaul in the upper house in the autumn. Despite Boris Johnson's ouster last week, the protocol bill is backed by all remaining candidates running to succeed Boris Johnson as Prime Minister and Conservative leader. If the UK government were to enact the Protocol Act for Northern Ireland, there would be severe consequences for them. Such a move would create further difficulties at this particularly difficult time in Northern Ireland. It would damage the UK government's reputation around the world. That is another thing Kelly said. Should the draft law come into force, the EU would have no choice but to protect the internal market in this situation and likely to take further legal action. It could trigger an unwanted and unnecessary trade war, Kelly added. And he's quite right with that, because what the British government is trying to do with this bill, and tried in many different places as well, and did before, is a clear breach of the deals that were made, or the contracts that were made between each other, and between the UK and the EU. And this is a breach of international law. And of course, the EU cannot hold still. I want them to act more than they did so far. But finally, they started acting now because of this bill. But whoever succeeds Johnson either has to realize that global Britain is a chimera, and Britain is one country in a very big world that's even gotten bigger in the recent decades. And we are in a globalized world where one country alone will not have it very easy to stand up for itself. And except China, the USA, and Russia, they are big enough. But we here in Europe, we need to work together. Britain left this working together on the economical side and the political side, but they will someday realize that Brexit was harming the UK like hell, and unfortunately, none of those on the in the ballot for succeeding Boris Johnson will realize that. Even former Remainers will not do that because they want to just appease the Brexit hardliners in the party, the right wingers, which are quite a majority in Parliament, in the Parliament group of the Tories now. And so nothing will happen there. And Labour, of course, some are saying that even if Labour wins in 2024, we will know there will be no attempts to rejoin the EU or rejoin the single market or the customs union. Some are now saying, yeah, Starmer is just being realistic. He's just saying he knows that the EU won't have them back anywhere, and he has to live with reality. Yeah, nah. He could work differently. He could work on a longer perspective. But he chose to exclude that from his policy for the near future, and that is a bad choice for him as well, because now he will lose a lot to the Liberal Democrats. I'm quite sure about that. And he's confusing people. Even if they want a change, they won't get it with Labour. So what is the alternative in the next general election? Keir Starmer didn't do good for his party. He might have done something good for staying leader of that party, but he didn't do them any good for the next elections. And the people in the UK who are not on the side of Boris must be very confused at the moment what to do in the future. The people in Scotland, fine, they know what to do. The people in Northern Ireland, fine, they know what to do. They have the SNP and they have Sinn Féin. They know what they want. But what happens in England and in Wales in the next general election? That is quite of a big kerfuffle, as I heard from my favorite TV show. I'll see you in my next video. Schau vorbei.